flying here.
Hello and welcome to Socialist Night Live. It's quite an interesting night. Things are going on at the moment, so we don't know what to really expect with this show. Things could be happening as we speak, but it's going to be a little bit Labour Party based tonight, given that there've been elections on and given that there have been some developments there. So normally we like to focus on broad concepts of socialism, but tonight we'd had planned to do a little bit of electoralism, and we're going to do it tonight. So we have some special guests with us. We have Kath Davis, who's come to speak to us about the local elections. So congratulations to Kath, who's just been it's reselected, isn't it, in
Yep.
North Tyneside? So congratulations to you. Really pleased to see you re-elected. And we have also got. I'll come to you in a second for a full introduction. We've also got Mark Rattigan, who some of you may recognise from coming on Political Unmuted before. Absolutely brilliant person, and a former pupil of mine, which always makes me swell with pride. It really, really top lad, and from Hartlepool as well. So we're going to be discussing what's happened in Hartlepool, the fallout from that, and what Mr. Starmer has done and who he's decided to blame. I'm sorry for laughing, but I have a theory that the right of the Labour Party will always turn on itself. And it tends to do that, and it's been quite ridiculous that he's decided to take the blame for something by blaming other people. He's done that again. Also, we've got Laura. Hello, Laura.
Hello, I'm back.
Yeah, nice to have you back, and we're back because we had a week off last week. So this week we are back, and pretty tired after the campaign, but I think we've got a little bit more time on our hands. But anyway, I'm going to get to our guests. So, Kath, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and where you've been elected today? And, and then we'll go into a little bit on a little bit of thoughts about the local elections.
Hi, thanks, Paul. I've been re-elected to Preston Ward in North Tyneside. I've been the councillor there for, well, it's actually 9 years because we've had, with last year's election being postponed. So we went in, also we had a by-election at the same time, which, because Kate Osborne, my colleague, she's now MP for Jarrow. So there was that by-election as well. And it was fairly, I think it was quite confusing because lots of candidates. We had two Labour candidates, and I had a great running mate, Helen Smith. And we've ran a really positive sort of grassroots campaign, getting them, talking to residents, talking about the problems, getting out there. We used to do, when we first started, we used to do like litter picks and say to people, if you want to come along and have a chat while we're out. And that was really working really well. And then once we got to where we could meet people, we started to do the door knocking, but obviously we were restricted before then. But we've kept going with that. And what we've been doing is focusing on, say there's been like a problem, there was some antisocial behaviour in one area, and we've got involved in that and listened to residents and got Kim McGuinness around and stuff like that. But it was actually like dealing with things as they were happening. And that was a really good response. But we were up against like a massive, the Tories that really targeted this ward. Because in the past, I mean, there was an allegation of, like, because I'd like to post for Rebecca Long Bailey's post, and there was an anti-Semitism. It was anyway. We had to deal with that. But what they did was they made a lot of that, and they had every single article they had was about me, and it was just constant pressure all the time. They had glossy magazines and things, and it was like lots of campaign literature was really personal and sort of trying to attack us on a personal basis. And I think with the COVID, like the wave of COVID, the injections, I think it's like made a real difference, and the Tory vote was just pushed up. And what's happened is that now the Tories actually sort of got the 3 years that I would have ran for last year, and I've now got the by-election from Kate, so I've only got a year in, but we got there. I mean, we did really well, and Helen came third. We were hoping that I'd maybe get the first position, and then Helen would come in and we could campaign for her next year, but that's not going to be the case. So it was disappointing, but it was also good that we held the vote, and it was evident it was because we got amongst people and talked to people in the community, and we really focused on making sure people saw what we were doing. And wherever we went, we had our Labour t-shirts, Labour t-shirts, Labour sweatshirts on, so that we could identify we were for Labour. At one point the Tories even wrote it a Dear Carol letter, it was from a neighbour, saying they were this neighbour Carol, and addressing it to every household, pretending they were a neighbour, and then complaining about me as a candidate and things. It was that kind of tactics that were going on, but then it'd have the imprint really small on the bottom. So you'd end up, that was the kind of tactics they were deploying. We even had I was going to show you, it was a leaflet that looked like a green leaflet. So it was but it was a Tory leaflet. And we were constantly subjected to that. So I'm so pleased that we did so well in the current climate, because obviously the Labour vote is just tronched, really, it's fell, but it's been really hard campaign, but it's taught us a lot of lessons about being amongst the community and the grassroots.
That's really important. I think the grassroots thing, just on the kind of smears that were put against you. I'm assuming that like most Labour members, you absolutely abhor anti-Semitism and any form of racism, and it just goes to show how dangerous these spurious allegations are. And I'm also assuming that to stand as a candidate, those allegations have been found to be untrue. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, I said, I abhor any form of racism and anti-Semitism. It was just something at that time that was picked up on, and something that would have been, should have been dealt with in a totally different way, but it wasn't. It was they meant to make a lot of it. Which it was something it was. I actually deleted the like. It was a like on a friend's post that I didn't know about, and that was where it all came from. But it's it was really unfortunate, and the press got hold of it and everything, and it was something that was blown up out of all proportion. And like you say, my life has been it's been about anti-racism, not and any form of oppression of other people because of their color, race, or creed, or of their sexuality or anything like that. And I found it really deeply upsetting. But what's happened is they've got onto this. But I don't think a lot of people who actually supported me took any notice of that. I think they just saw what we were doing in the community and my track record as a councillor. I think it wasn't so much that. I think it was the fact when I was on the doorstep, everyone was saying, we want change. And I would say to them, well, we've still got a Tory government in after 11 years. And they couldn't see the connect between the Tories with the cuts, and the councils were trying to operate in that climate that didn't seem to have that connect. And it was another mantra, get Brexit done. It was time for change, and they didn't have this connect. And they were really good at this. And it was highlighting on trying to make me some sort of person who wasn't untrustworthy or whatever. And then at the same time, going the three things I went on was potholes, the council tax, and the mayor's car, and which were all really spurious things, because the potholes are on a rolling programme. The mayor's car isn't the mayor's car. I mean, she uses her own car. and it's a civic car, and also was it the magazine, the council magazine. It was things like that. But what it was doing was just sort of like as if we were making good out of like these these things in the council, rather than like us trying to tackle like how our in a budget, trying to make budgets and trying to like keep services open on like less and less money each year. And I don't think we sent that message across enough. And it was very easy. I think the whole country, there's this like mantra about having change in councils, and I think it's about talking to people in that grassroots thing, about saying to people this is not the case. It's more about how the government, it's central government who are setting these budgets. And I think people had a lack of some people had a lack of understanding of that. Yeah.
I think that's going to resonate with a lot of. It already has resonated with a lot of our viewers and listeners, and the panel nodding along there. This idea of vote for change, vote for the same. It's I'm currently like reading 1984, and it's that double think, isn't it? It's that like that's where we are. I think vote for change, vote for the Conservatives. What? It doesn't make any sense. But some really cracking comments coming in. Ruth Davidson, who is brilliant, coming in with a lot of a very a resounding thanks for you. For all your work, so thanks for that, Kath, and thanks for those comments, Ruth. A couple of comments I believe about Angela Rayner so far, like talking about how she's performed in the role so far, and what's happened to her. So we'll speak about that a little bit later. And we've also had some results coming in. So I think Eddie Adam has just been elected in Sedgefield. That's one of in our ward. Eddie Adam has, but the other candidate was unfortunately unsuccessful in that one. But Eddie, I'm sure he'll stand by socialist principles and do us proud there. So well done, Eddie. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to Mark. Now, Mark, you were nodding along, really, massive agreement with a lot of what Kath was saying there. Now, you're a member of Hartlepool CLP, so people generally tend to know about what's happened in Hartlepool. Some people may not. So what are your feelings on what's gone on in Hartlepool, and why it is that the people of Hartlepool have decided to go for Conservatives, and you're in there, you're on the ground, you know what's going on. So let's go for it.
Well, it's very good to be on, but first of all, and we need channels like this to push the word of socialism out to the people, because not a lot of people know what socialism is and what it can do for people. So thanks for that, Paul, and thanks for that, Laura. Yeah, it's an interesting one, Hartlepool, because obviously it's come into a lot of media attention lately. Normally, it's one of them areas that just gets pushed aside on a general election night, as definitely Labour. In other parts of the country, that's definitely Tory. Hartlepool's changed a lot over the years, and it's especially in recent years, where we've, in my area just alone, where we've had 3 new housing estates being built, and a lot of some houses are going for £500,000 in this area. So there's been a lot of change, and a lot of change at the council level as well, because obviously we've seen a lot of Labour lost the majority in Hartlepool a few years back, and they've never got it back since. But yeah, it is difficult. It's a difficult one to understand, Hartlepool, because it's got a lot of areas that are very wealthy and a lot of areas that are very deprived, and a lot of areas that need a lot of attention. But the CLP decided to pick, or it was chosen for them, a candidate called Paul Williams, and he's a doctor, and I've got every respect for him for being a doctor, every respect for him working in the NHS, like my own mother does. I've got every respect for healthcare professionals and the work they've done, especially over the pandemic, and they haven't been treated very well at all. like teachers, to be honest with you, haven't been treated very well at all, and we didn't get a say. That's the kind of the bottom and short of it. We didn't get a say, and whether that's the CLP problem or it's a national Labour problem, we didn't get a say. And there was a lot of people that were, unhappy about that, to be honest. And I was one of them myself. And I don't want to point blame at anybody. I don't want to, name call or anything like that. But it is the problem when you're a Democratic Party and you stand on them values, and you don't give your own members a say. That is a problem, and that was a problem for me, and that's why I had to sit out this election, unfortunately, and not go and campaign, because it was very hard to accept that we didn't get that say. And the other thing is the Brexit issue. This is a town that voted 70%, 69% leave. Whether you agree with that or you don't agree with that, you have to accept that result. And there's a lot of people in this town that are very, very passionate about the idea of leaving. Now, a lot of people will say, "Well, we've already left. The Brexit got done." Yes, it did. It did get done in a way. It's not finished yet. There's a lot of things still to do with Brexit, but it lives on. That vote lives on in people's minds, and you can't pick a Remainer in a Brexit town and expect to do well. It doesn't work that way. So that's the other issue, and the other one for me especially is that we need to pick a candidate that's local, that the people know, that people see, that there's been in the council or been running a business. We didn't get that, and that upset a lot of people, including me. So there's many reasons why we didn't win, and our vote, our share of the vote, and the votes that have gone to us peaked in 2017 with Jeremy Corbyn, over 20,000, 21,000, and it's declined ever since. It declined to 15,000 and now to 8,500. So there's a reason why we're not connecting with voters. There's a reason why we're not appealing to voters. And I speak to people every day who are disillusioned with Labour. They don't know what Labour stands for. They don't know where the vision is, where Labour wants to take the country, what it wants to do with the country. And that's a big problem for us, and we need to be winning places like Hartlepool, because if we're not winning towns like this and we're not appealing to these voters, we have got a big problem.
Absolutely, and you've managed to get that from top to bottom. Now, there's a comment there that I want to bring you in on here from Jake Ratcliffe, which says, "I knew we were going to lose Hartlepool as soon as Williams invited Mandelson along to the campaign." So we discussed this a little bit before we came on air. We discussed our thoughts on Peter Mandelson, and obviously, I worked in Hartlepool at the school that you were at. We know how people feel about Mandelson. So what are your thoughts on that when they brought in Mandelson?
Well, I first saw this when I saw a video being put out by Paul Williams, and he was described as being well respected in the town. That was the title of the video. I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't believe it for the simple reason that I was out with a Labour person in 2017 in the local elections, and the amount of dislike of Peter Mandelson in this town is people know it. People say, so it's not like the CLP didn't know, and that was what shocked me, because it's well known that people don't like, for right or wrong, people don't like Peter Mandelson in this town. And I couldn't understand why we would invite him on the campaign trail in Hartlepool to speak to voters in this town. It didn't make any sense to me. I'm still shocked. I can't tell you why, because I'm shocked. I didn't know about it beforehand. I only learned it like everybody else learned it. And I can't understand why they described him in such a way. It baffles me.
Now, I'm aware that, Kath, you have to go relatively shortly. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring in Laura briefly on this on Mandelson, and then we'll go back to Kath so that we can hear a little bit more from her before she
Just go
goes.
turn the light on because I'm
Yeah, tell
seems to
like
be.
you've been fading away, fading away. So Laura, you're obviously Peter Mandelson is a well-respected figure, is he not? Like I've seen him with all sorts of people. I've seen him with Jeffrey Epstein, well-known businessman and paedophile, sex traffic runner. That these are respectable people to get involved in your campaign, are they not?
I think it's just pure jealousy because other people don't have those types of friends. I mean, come on, dear me, Mandelson. And do you know what? I think everybody from Hartlepool saw that advert, and I saw it, and I was like, "What?" And I'm not even from Hartlepool, and all of my friends from Hartlepool were like, "We just hate him." And I think what's happening is the Labour Party seem to be harken back to the Blair years. Yes, we won a government during Blair's reign, but times have moved on since then. And since then, people have seen the issues with that particular government. And also, times in general just aren't the same as they were then. But it seems like the Labour Party are living in their own little bubble where they think, right, let's go back to those heady days. We'll do all the same things, and we'll win and we'll be brilliant. And it just showed a complete lack of self-awareness. Carton Mandelson out of all people. That as soon as that happened, I was like, right, that's it. We're done. We're absolutely done. These people don't have a clue about normal people. They've never walked around Hartlepool and spoken to normal people. If they think that this is the way to go. And I know Angela Rayner, I know we'll talk about her in detail later. I know she was the campaigns coordinator. If it was her decision to bring Mandelson, then I think it was probably the right decision to get a shot of her from that job. I don't know if that was the case, but dear me, what an own goal that was.
One of my favourite Peter Mandelson stories is the time that I was told this by people who had been there when it happened. Apparently, he went into a fish and chip shop in Hartlepool, and to try and endear himself as they do. You know how they buy fish and chips the same way that Starmer was having pints with blokes. In his massively partridge style. It's like that. You'd visit a local fish and chip shop and, oh, look at me, I'm a man of the people in the fish and chip shop. And he walked in and he was like, what's that in that little pot? Is it guacamole? A green mushy substance in a chip shop that he obviously frequents a lot. That was guacamole in the 90s in Hartlepool. So this is.
Do you want to clarify that it was indeed mushy peas, just in case anybody else watching doesn't know what mushy green stuff is in a fish and chip shop up here?
I think people who watch our channel would know what mushy peas are, but I try and avoid the term. You know me.
And I do know, yeah.
I hate peas. I have a real problem. So, Kath, is anything Mark saying resonating with you there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we in North Tyneside here, we've still got a Labour administration, and we've gained seats. We've booked the trend, but I think we're in danger of we've got branches where I would say there were like dead branches because it's just nobody gets involved, and that it's like a bit like you're describing, Mark, about Hartlepool. You just expect they vote. And I think we've just got to start working these branches because people. I mean, I walked around. I don't know if you've heard of the Meadowell. Well, it was the Meadowell riots many years ago. And I talked to people there, and they just said everyone forgets us. Nobody's bothered about us. The turnout in those areas is like 29%. And nobody wants to vote. Nobody gets involved. But when we had the Brexit vote, they all came out and they all voted like Brexit. And I think you've got to, you can't leave people behind, and that's what we're guilty of. Just what Mark's describing, because you've got when people are part of the process, they'll accept it. But you can't just like what Mark said is just sort of expect people just to accept what's given, not without having a voice. And that's the thing now with social media and with all of these other forms of like communication. the people will go, and they won't stay in one. They won't be so partisan, and we've got to be really careful about that and get the message out there. And I think it's exactly what I said before, grassroots, and that's what we'll continue to do. But I think as a Labour Party, we've got to make sure that we're not taking these areas for granted, and we've got those areas in our constituencies. Because these people will vote, and they'll start to turn that the Tory vote has gone up in a lot of these areas, and I'll just think as well. My personal is to have PR. I think that's a way forward for us as well, because like for instance in Whitley Bay there, we won that seat, but the Greens vote was was substantially increased. They were second. And you've got to accept that that other people have got to be part of that as well. I'm running for the NEC for the northern seat, the female seat, at the moment, and I just think there needs to be more voice from our unions as well, because the unions need to step up. And I'm with Unison, and I just feel that these big unions need to be getting to their members as well. It needs to be a whole thing, working with the unions, working with the councils, working with the party, the Labour Party, to get to change how this is happening. Because I saw Laura Piddock yesterday on the news, and she was just brilliant, saying about people are voting Tory thinking it's the right way, but we know ourselves it's not. In a year's time, that the wheels are going to fall off here, and he can't wallpaper over the cracks with these £800 wallpaper very much longer, because there will be rises in unemployment. People will see that they're having at the moment I'm doing a care work job, to see what it's like. And honestly, I didn't realize how bad, there's 2 million care workers, and I didn't realize how bad care work was until I started doing this. I can't believe it's a private organization. The other week I worked 15 hours and I got £97 after tax and national insurance. And these are, and I'm working with women who are working from 6:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night, and they get breaks in between, and the shifts change all the time because other carers are just dropping out and they're having to take on more work, and they're working 10 days in a row for that. It is, and that's what we need to be doing, is getting into these places and getting these people organized. They don't give you the numbers of the other carers that you're going to work with, so you don't organize. And there's 2 million care workers. Unison should be in there, But anyway, that's another story. But it's that kind of thing. But it's been great being invited to this chat. But I'll have to leave in a minute. But thank you.
Well, if you need to leave, well, you go with our thanks. It's been really brilliant, and we know how tired everyone is following the local elections. So in a moment, we're probably going to move on to speaking about one of Unison's shining lights, which is Angela Rayner. One of their, they've invested a lot of time and effort into Angela Rayner, and she's just been kicked out, apparently, and we'll talk about that very, very shortly. I just wanted to, as we say goodbye to Kath, and we keep things going, and I do a couple of technical things to make things look all pretty and what have you. But please feel free to say bye bye now, Kath. If
okay, bye bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks
Bye bye.
so much, Kath.
And I'm going to ask Laura to kind of explain to us, is this a problem with electoralism? Like, is this whole thing, like, we're talking about electoral politics, and one of the things we want to do in Socialist Think Tank is actually, and electoral politics isn't necessarily the answer to all of our problems here. And you've got like Mandelson and Blair. They were like, "Oh, right, we tell you what, that's our core vote. We'll forget that. We'll focus somewhere else." And that led to the Southern. Or was it Southern Discomfort or something like that? That report that they did that said actually we're going to stick with people from the south rather than the north. So discuss that, Laura, while I put you back on screen.
Oh God, where to start with that, Paul? Dear me. Yeah. So there was, I think, the initial one was Southern Discomfort, and it was about how there was no need. Essentially, there was no need to come up here and lobby for votes and campaign because the North would always be red, and that's just who we were. Subsequently, Ian Lavery and John Trickett had sort of looked into that, and written a different version called Northern Discomfort. And I think I've got those the right way around. Apologies to Ian and John if I haven't. Which was explaining exactly why that wasn't the case. And this was before the last election, long before the last election. And lo and behold, it came true, you know. And we're seeing the effects of Brexit, the effects of the what happens when you take us for granted up here. I think essentially, we're not just people who'll vote a colour just because. And I think historically, potentially we would have been, but that was in the days where Labour were Labour and they were for workers and they were for people who weren't elitists and they didn't get money from rich donors, and and it was a proper for the people movement, quite socialist, democratic socialist, as is printed on our cards. And that the term the broad church I'm fine with if it is a broad church in that movement, which I think the Labour Party should be. You can be extremely left, you can be left, and you can be bordering towards centre, but that whole conversation, left or right centre, doesn't mean anything anymore in terms of politics, because since Tony Blair we moved so far towards the centre that then became left. These people here, us, we never moved, and now we're seen as far right Trotskyist thugs, but we've never moved. We've been in the same place the whole time. It's everybody else who's moving. And so the Labour Party now is still going, but this is how we win, though. We win votes by looking at these people and say, those people already had a home. Those people have the Tories. If you want to be Tory light, you're not going to win votes back from Tories. Tories will vote Tories. That's just the way it is. What we need to do is re-engage with the people. And Keir Starmer said this himself. We need to re-engage with the people. His method of re-engagement was to sack a bunch of people, not admit your wrongdoing, look at your mistakes and come out and speak to people honestly. And I think a lot of work needs to be done. I, for example, really want to speak to all of these people in the North who've voted Tory, even if it's for the first time in their local council, to find out why, not to have an argument and tell them why they're wrong, because that's their opinion. I really want to find out why, and I'm worried that the Labour Party don't care why, and that they're just going to continue down this path of neoliberalism, bringing that back, celebrating all its wonder, while the rest of us just flounder and have no one looking out for us. We don't have an opposition. We don't have people who are looking out for working class people. And I've just seen Jake Radcliffe's comment and I feel a bit sick.
No. Heidi and John. John's been an outstanding councillor and Heidi would be absolutely tremendous as well. And what an awful thing. So the news that's come through there is Sedgefield itself, which is quite an affluent town. John Robinson, who's been the councillor there for many years, brilliant person. His lovely wife Maxine has just died at the beginning of the campaign, which we were really sad about. And he's lost his seat there, and that's hurt, that one. So really sad about that. And you know what? I think it's another step on the where are we going as a Labour Party if people like John, who's a trusted councillor, can't get elected? It's not because of what he's done. It's not because of what he's done. It's because of this incessant attack that the Labour Party has had over the past 5 years on Jeremy Corbyn, followed up by an utterly bland, pointless, boring man whose only quality is ambition. And that person is Keir Starmer. What a disaster he has been for the party. But it wasn't his fault.
Paul, I have to say on that, like in terms of the what has replaced Jeremy Corbyn, I've had a conversation. I was on Radio 4 recently with the same fellow I was last time, who was a fan of Keir Starmer, and he started the conversation by blame. We were talking about the Hartlepool result, and he started the conversation by blaming Jeremy Corbyn, and he finished the conversation by saying, "But you know what? We all need to work together. We need to stop the infighting, and we need to forget about Jeremy Corbyn." And I was like, "I didn't bring him up. You did." The right of the party need to just take a look at themselves and realize that we're the ones who move for them all the time. We are always the people who compromise. And you're getting to a point now where you've pissed off that many people, they'll not be compromising anymore. They'll leave or they'll fight you. So you've got to get prepared for a fight or to have a completely diminished membership. And the thing is, now all the lefties who are the ones who go out and knock on the doors and deliver leaflets and do all the groundwork, they've served their purpose now. This election's done. I guarantee you'll start seeing the erroneous complaints come in and people getting suspended again. And it's just infuriating because let's remember, they absolutely dragged Jeremy Corbyn across the coals. You know, he could do nothing right. And so we begged them to stop. We literally begged them to stop and just give him a chance, and they never did. So when Keir came in, as far as I'm concerned, I can only speak for Sedgefield. We all decided, right, let's give Keir a chance because we don't want to do the same thing that they did to us. And we gave him a chance and he squandered it by being horrendous, given no opposition, given no support to anybody, taken, you know, he doesn't need the money from the membership anymore because he's got his rich benefactors and all of that. And it was just really just taking us backwards so far. They need to have a look at themselves and stop blaming the left. Like I say, we're the ones who do all the moving. We're the ones who do all the compromising. I guarantee that stops now. And they'll see what it's like when the left don't compromise anymore. And I think they're in for a rude awakening.
You know what the sad thing about all this is, because I'm not really interested in the party political point scoring really. I class myself as a socialist, but I'm not really interested in, and I wish we wouldn't do it. But I can understand where the people on the left are coming from. But what really makes me sad about all this is we're letting the Tories walk all over us while this is happening. You know,
we're not going to beat the Tories.
Oh no, I understand, and I completely understand that. I'm in a ward of 3 Tories, and they've always, it's always been Tory. It's a Tory area. But now we're looking at Tories walking all over the town. 13. They've got 13 seats now in the council. They put on 10 in this town. And that speaks to people in other areas of the town. They don't feel listened to by Labour.
Mm-hmm. And I entirely agree with you.
And they are walking away from us at every election, more and more and more, walking away. The real winner at this by-election was apathy. If you look at the votes, it was apathy. People are not even bothered voting. The people we need to get out to vote, the people we are standing for, we're speaking for, are not voting for us. And that is,
I entirely agree.
That is sad. And it was, sorry.
No, I was just, I entirely agree. And I really think that is because we don't have an alternative at the minute. We have more of the same. And it's not point scoring within a political party. I want us to be able to work together. What I'm saying is we've tried and we're sick of trying and being told no, or just flat out ignored and told we can't talk about stuff. It's really difficult to achieve. We're not achieving anything. And yet the party continues on down its path that it's going, which has led us here where people don't care because no one's doing the grassroots work. No one's doing the speaking to people.
So really sorry for the technical issues we've had due to that man cutting through the internet cable, but people are coming back. If you don't mind giving us a like and a share and subscribing and all those things, because the quality of the chat in the Zoom has been really, really good after we went off air there. But as I say, we can't help it if people come crawling into our back garden and chop things off. So what we were talking about in there was we were about to move on to the really big story and the title of this, which is, like Labour have really done badly here, and the electoralism is probably a real negative for us. And the idea of the likes of Peter Mandelson being involved, someone who ignored the North, someone who's unpopular here, being brought in, that's particularly bad. And no one seems to know what Labour stands for anymore. And we now have realised, all of us on this call, I'm sure, that this is somehow the fault of Angela Rayner. And we understand that is somehow her fault. But what is it about a northern working class woman with a real working class backstory and an accent that the Tories laugh at, that Keir Starmer finds so easy to throw under a bus, Mark?
Well, it's a shame because I was on a roll before. But I don't know what the answer to that question, to be honest. But what I do know is it's not Angela Rayner's fault. It's not Angela Rayner's fault. I've seen some stories online that she was responsible for the campaign. I do not believe that for a second. This was Keir Starmer's campaign. This was his first test as Labour leader. This was his time in the limelight to shine. We've seen all of this stuff at Prime Minister's Question Time, and he hasn't been great there either. He's had some good weeks and some bad weeks, a lot of bad weeks, to be honest, defending the Tory government and accepting this and accepting that from the Tory government. But this was his moment in a place like Hartlepool where we should win this seat, and we've done very badly. And when you have a look at it, it's very hard for him to make the case that it is Jeremy Corbyn's fault or Angela Rayner's fault, because when you look at Labour in Wales, they've done very well. When you look at Andy Burnham, done very well. Steve Rotherham in Liverpool, done very, very well. So it's very hard for him to turn around and make the case that it is Jeremy Corbyn's legacy that's caused all this. I find it very baffling.
Yeah, and we've also got a few people on the way, haven't we, as well? So, and we hear the names that are likely to go, and Andy MacDonald, in Northern Voice, Lisa Nandy. Maybe we in Socialist Think Tank, given that we're based much further north, might not consider Wigan to be the north, but a lot of people would consider it to be the north. Lisa Nandy, big rumour that she's going to go. I'm a big fan of Andy MacDonald. I think he's a good, solid MP. Nandy, I thought she was poor during the leadership campaign, but that'll be two leadership women that he was up against that'll be jettisoned if that's the case. Does Starmer have a woman problem? I know Annalise Dodds might be on the chopping block as well. Does Starmer have a woman problem?
It's certainly, I mean, you can't really sort of brand somebody with that at this stage, but it certainly hints towards that, doesn't it? It's everyone. The first person he gets rid of is always a woman. Also, I think he's got a power problem in that everybody who stood against him or said something against him have gone as well. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how this whole situation develops. In terms of Angela Rayner being at fault, no, I don't think she's at fault. I think she was. It's a long, convoluted story, I guess, around Angela Rayner. And if you hear any whinging, it's just me dog. I don't know what's the matter. Yeah, she. A lot of people were really disappointed when Angela went for deputy leader and the things she did subsequently, which seemed to suggest she was turning her back on the left. I don't know if I have a thing about conspiracy theories, but I feel like maybe she did sell out a little bit and then somehow became like under the thumb of Keir Starmer, because what has she really done? She hasn't come out and publicly said a great deal. She certainly hasn't been as vocal as she used to be. And I think she has served as a very good tool for Keir Starmer to use in this instance. Not half an hour before he was on the news saying that he takes full responsibility and then starts sacking other people. I mean, does he mean that it was his responsibility to put Angela Rayner in that position, and so it's his fault. Kind of like one of Sheldon's apologies, where it's like, "I'm sorry you feel that way." It just all just seems really grubby and a bit tacky, and just really, people need to wake up, and the Labour Party need to ask themselves some serious questions and stop just trying to get around issues and start facing them. You know, he did say he was going to face the country. Not really sure what that means, but
Well, she would have been an excellent tool, as I said before we were taking offline. She would have been an excellent tool tomorrow to defend or try and defend this leadership's campaign and over the last few weeks. But it looks as though she was going to be out there to defend Keir Starmer and Andrew Marr tomorrow morning, and now she won't be. So there's something going on inside the Labour Party. And as I say, while we, fighting between each other, which we shouldn't be, we've got Boris Johnson doing awful things to the country and to working class people. We need to move on from this. We need to change the Labour Party both nationally and locally, and get our house in order, if you like. Because while we're doing this, people are suffering in the background.
That's a hugely important point, I think. So I was just saying that's a hugely important point because what you've said there, like somehow we always manage to make everything about the Labour Party and how crap the Labour Party is. Like, why is it always a problem with the Labour Party? Like, Priti Patel managed to go and try to negotiate to get our foreign aid budget taken to Israel, allegedly, and yet, she was sacked because of that, and then she's back in shadow cabinet, and nothing's really said. And then Gavin Williamson allegedly, leaked state secrets, which many would consider to be treason, allegedly. And then he's back and he's in charge. Everyone's like, and everyone thinks he's an idiot, but they don't think that he's a traitor. Now, Jeremy Corbyn was a traitor for doing nothing, doing nothing that was actually traitorous. So, how do we always manage to make this about ourselves?
It's an interesting point you made a few nights ago, Paul, when I listened to you. You listen to people say that Jeremy Corbyn is dangerous. We can't trust him. Yet, he's supposed to be this person who is against having a military. He can't be an appeaser and then be dangerous at the same time.
Yeah, it was on the show last night, wasn't it? About Northern Ireland, where he was simultaneously in the IRA and a pacifist. Somehow, he's a terrorist and a pacifist simultaneously. And you can't be both.
Can't be both at the same time.
Yeah. And apparently,
Paul, in that respect, though, it's not us who are making it about the Labour Party in that respect that you've just detailed. It's the media always making it about the Labour Party.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, we're not doing ourselves any favours because we don't kick off about the stuff we should be kicking off about. And that's what the left, and I hate using the term left and right because I think it goes much deeper than that. Just for ease of conversation, I'll say the left are always pushing for us to go, have you seen what the Tories are doing? Why aren't you saying anything? This is why there's infighting, because the leadership at the minute are trying to suppress democracy. They're trying to stop us challenging people. If we go into that parliament and support the government like we have done for the past year during the pandemic, then what is our point? What are we there to do? We're not going to win on that because we're just more of the same. That's the problem. And as I said earlier, it's always us who are compromising, and I'm sick of it. The right need to take a long, hard look at themselves and realise that doing the same things you did in 97 are not going to work now. Supporting a government that has literally been complicit in killing hundreds of thousands of people just through pure ineptitude. We should be furious. We should be absolutely tearing them to pieces. And we're not. And that is where we failed. We have not given anyone another alternative or an opportunity. Everyone just thinks they're being left. So let's just go with more of the same.
Now, the comments again have been absolutely brilliant tonight, and it's been so good to have them coming up on screen because we haven't been able to address them because they're coming in so thick and fast that, like, which one do you address? So I am reading them all, and I do think they're absolutely incredible, and our audience is one of the main reasons. The only people who are missing out, I suppose, are the people who listen on a podcast because the rest of the people can see this. But we have got some really high quality comments tonight. One of them is Durham County Council, DCC, which was, people use their little acronyms and terminology and stuff that people don't understand quite a lot. But I was glad people asked. That's Durham County Council have now not got any possibility of having a majority. So for the first time in its history, so over 100 years of Durham County Council, it will be in no overall control. Now, the Labour Party will still be the largest party, but it's going to have to work with other parties, or it would be possible, and it would be interesting to see whether the independents and the Tories and the Lib Dems form a coalition against Labour. It's going to be a little bit of a learning curve there, and I think lessons need to be learned about that. Now, interesting point, it related to Keir Starmer and related to Angela Rayner. When all this happened, when the Labour Party did badly at the last election, we thought, okay, Sedgefield, it's quite a high profile seat. The Tories were all over it. Boris Johnson's been here a few times, like to the south of he wouldn't want to come up to Wingate where it's a bit like, I don't know what would happen to him in Wingate. But, we thought that Keir Starmer might be interested in coming here or virtually coming here and speaking to members. And we put out some, requests. And we actually have someone who appears to be very close to him, who's a member of our CLP executive, who's actually quite high profile on Twitter, but has never turned up to a single CLP meeting or executive meeting, who's quite close to him, and we asked him to reach out and say, would Keir Starmer come? And he wasn't interested. He wasn't interested in... So, how can you think that you want to know how to win back the red wall, which, again, is a stupid thing. There's no such thing as the red wall. There are only people. There is no red wall. But how do you think you can win back these seats that you've lost without talking to the people who are your eyes and ears, and that's what Labour members should be. They should be your eyes and ears. Like, what's going on? Like, why are we losing? What's happened? It's not like we don't know. We know exactly why we're losing here. So why is he not interested in hearing that? Why would he rather have, like, a selection of people, maybe from Bury, who voted Conservative last time, to tell them what they want? In a focus group, 6 people. That's not what it's about. It's about going out and going into your communities and learning. That is what you should be doing. That is clearly logical. Not little focus groups where you're like, oh, what do you think? Well, I just hate brown people. Right, the Labour Party now hates brown people. I'm not saying that's an actual policy, but that's how ridiculous it could be. If you're just listening to a small selection of people, that's not how it works. You need to listen to people who are listening to communities. That's how it should work.
Well, I feel a little bit better for that, Paul, because we've had him here 3 times in the last few weeks.
How many pints has he had in that time?
Oh, probably a few, to be honest. But it always seems to focus on a certain areas, which is a brewery. The power station always gets a look in, and Seaton Beach always seems to be popular for some reason. A beach with nobody on it seems to be popular. They don't focus on the areas that are needed. I mean, the candidate didn't even bother campaigning in this ward. It's seen as a Tory ward, I'll give you that, but it's not ward based in a by-election for MP. There's votes around here for him, but doesn't bother coming around. And I can't understand why. Just can't understand it.
Did you see him boxing?
Yes. Yeah.
It's embarrassing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Classic Tory trick. A photo opportunity.
Oh no! Did you see the video of him boxing?
I didn't see the video. I saw the photo.
I've never seen anything like it. Honestly, like I'm not someone who likes to fight people, but Keir Starmer is someone who literally could not fight his way out of a paper bag. You know, he looked stupid. And you've got like Jessie Jo Jacobs when she did it, and she was all proper, and she knew what she was doing, and she's ducking and waving and smacking people and stuff like that. By the way, that was also a travesty because Jessie Jo would have been an absolutely outstanding there.
Absolutely.
But that this is the thing we live now. On that note, there's a little thing that people have been feeding through to me, which is that they think that they're seeing the Tory cronyism, and it's not like they're blind to it. It's not that people are thinking that's not happening. What they're saying is, actually, if we vote Tory, will we get something out of it? So almost like a cronyistic vote, like they're corrupt. They'll give people who are in Tory wards something that they wouldn't give to people in Labour wards, and that is what is inspiring.
But what does that say, Paul, about the country that we're becoming? They're treating Labour areas and places where the Tories don't control as second-class citizens. That's what it's about. It's about treating other people like a different way. Giving pots of money to Ben Houchen and other Tory mayors and other Tory areas, and leaving places like Hartlepool out in the dark until they vote Tory. That's what's going on.
Now, Laura, the other day you were on Evan Davis's show, and again, like that, you were absolutely brilliant, by the way. And go and listen to it. It's about 20 minutes into the PM show on Thursday or Friday. Was it Friday? Friday. 20 minutes into the PM show, which is at 5 o'clock. So go and listen to Radio 4. You can listen to that on Listen Again. It's about as I said, I've said it nine times now. 20 minutes in. So you were quite articulate. Paul? Yeah, about 20 minutes. About 20 minutes in, I think. So if you had that speech and you really articulated really well what the problems are, but also you were described, one thing that's really frustrating, you were described as a Corbyn supporter, which is a really weird thing to do. Like, they wouldn't say a Thatcher supporter, this person, or they didn't say to the actual Keir Starmer supporter, the Keir Starmer supporter, who actually I think works in his office, who was on with you, or whatever. I might be making that up, but who knows. Now, they have this strange narrative around everything they do, and they also have this real strange narrative around socialism. Now, I was listening to something where they were talking about Ben Houchen. They were like, Ben Houchen and Rishi Sunak aren't exactly typical Tories. Look at them spending money on things. That's socialism. And you're like, it's not, man. That's not what socialism is. Buying an airport out of public money isn't socialism. It's like, what do you do? You gotta just buy an airport. Oh, yeah, I tell you what, I bought an airport last week. Socialism in action. What? What do you mean?
But they drink pints, so it's all fine.
State subsidised pints for the rich and cheaper air flight for the rich. Socialism in action. That's what they seem to think. And you think, that airport is such a drain on the Tees Valley area, money-wise. And yeah, it's nice to have an airport for people, and I always like to go to that airport, a nice little airport, and you would fly out of there and get your little cheap flights or whatever. But that's not really happening anymore, and it seems to be only used to get people out of the northeast as quickly as possible. Like, Tory MPs get out of there as quickly as possible. So Sunak probably gets up there from Richmond. He's like, I can drive up there, get a quick flight down, much easier. When he visits it once in a year or whatever, and then you've got like Dehenna, Davison, and Paul Howell, and all those other people like using that airport out, and it's subsidised by public funds. Why do people have this ridiculous idea of what socialism is, which is just spending public money on stuff? It's like, I don't understand. Sorry, I've rambled on for a bit there, and I meant to ask you, Laura.
Okay, yeah, that really did go on a massive tangent. I didn't talk about any of that on the show.
No, it's just like generally the media and the weirdness of the media and the weirdness of the way the media talk about socialism, and I'm sure we'll see that over the next few days as well with what's happening in this. They'll be like,
Oh
obviously, we
God,
need to get rid of these
absolutely.
extreme left-wing voices like
Oh,
Lisa
we're
Nandy,
awful.
who thinks that you should have controls on immigration, which is very socialist. It's
Yeah,
nonsense. Like they don't seem
it
to
is.
understand anything.
The, yeah, it's really difficult because it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? One of the fellas on the show called the press sycophantic for the Tories, and I just thought that was so perfect because they literally get away with murder, literally get away with murder as far as the media are concerned. They can do no wrong, but yet Jeremy Corbyn makes a not delicious jam, and he's a demon, so it's yeah, when he sort of said the Corbyn supporter Laura, and then the other two just got and this person from this place, I was like, okay, well that comes with it quite a lot of bias before I've even opened my mouth. So now I'm going to be the loony lefty who's come to have a go at everybody. And I don't know if it was on purpose or what, but I think I've earned enough skepticism with the way the press have treated us over the years. I wasn't in Sedgefield constituency as the women's officer for more than a day before I was written about in the Daily Mail being a bully. So I'm kind of used to it now. But I think if people can cut through that nonsense and actually listen to the words we say, we do speak a lot of sense. Problem is no one's listening. Because they're too busy listening to mainstream media, which Keir Starmer himself, as you said, with his boxed and poses, is just, delved right into, really used it for all it's worth. It's just like, oh my God. But the thing about the massive Tory vote is that I'm confused as to what people are voting for, because the track record this year, you couldn't possibly say it's good. Nobody is, apart from the elite who've actually made money through the pandemic, who is doing better now as a result of this, and yet they're still voting Tory. And there's this narrative that it's like, oh, Boris, man, poor fella, he's had a hard time. He had COVID, he's trying his best, and he's a bit daft. No, he's far from daft. He's a very astute businessman. He's been trained to, from a very young age, to believe that he is a cut above everybody else. That is the world he's from. He wouldn't have a clue what it's like to live in the lives we've all lived. And he does mess his hair up before he comes out. That is a well-known fact now. He pulls his shirt out and stuff to make him look disheveled, so people buy into that persona that he's carefully crafted. And he'll have people, stylists, people who tell him how to stand, how to speak, how to make all the mistakes when he's trying to speak, how to fall over his words, to perpetuate that image of him, because it's working for him. And bloody hell, isn't it working for him? It really is. And again, I'd said on Friday that another reason that I think feeds into all of this is because ordinary working class people and ordinary working people, it could be middle class or whatever, people who are busy just trying to get through the day, to feed their children, to walk their dog, to not die from a pandemic that is being disastrously handled, are too busy to sit and not just watch the news that is presented to them, but actually look deeper into it to find the truth there. They're too busy, looking for jobs that they won't lose next week, secure jobs, houses, decent education, all of this, stuff we're desperately fighting for, that the government should, in my eyes, just be giving us anyway. Even like transport, they should be giving us enough just to get through our day, so that we can then move on and think about important stuff, like, what creative thing can I do today? What opportunity would I like to succeed with today? But no one's got time for that. And that is constructed for us. That life is constructed for us by a Tory government. If we are kept down, we are too busy to question them. And it is working for them. And they're the conversations we need to be having with people. And I'm not saying that you go in and find a Tory voter and tell them they're wrong, because like Paul, you always say, you don't win an argument by starting it with, well, you're wrong. And let me tell you why. Because we need to listen, we need to listen to why these people have voted Tory. And just saying, I don't like the Labour Party is not a good enough reason, although probably an accurate one at the moment.
Now,
You know, I
that
get
brings me
frustrated.
into something. Oh,
Sorry,
sorry,
Paul.
Mark, you continue on. You continue.
It makes me feel very frustrated when people say, poor Boris, as you just said there, Laura. He's had a difficult time. With this crisis, and he's had COVID himself, and all that. All that rubbish that goes along with it. This is the guy that, if needed, would be leading us through a world war. That's what, when you go into Downing Street, you go straight in the cabinet room and you sign letters in case of conflict and a world war. And this would be the guy that would be leading us through a world war. Not a COVID crisis, not a health pandemic, a world war. He knew exactly what it was this job entailed. He knew how difficult it was. But he wasn't bothered to put the hours in. He missed 5 COBA meetings. He wasn't interested. He was more interested in his marriage, right, than actually sorting the country out and protecting people. I have got no time for this excuse that, poor Boris. It's pathetic.
Yeah, he was more interested in actually not his marriage, wasn't he? He was in
yeah.
in the process of leaving his wife with cancer, which somehow he gets left alone from, in her time of need. He's just a dreadful person. So this is interesting. Richard Val, Laura, is asking what was the Tory turnout? What was the turnout? And he's saying he doesn't think there was a massive Tory turnout. He thinks there's a massive working class apathy or disconnect, and we need someone to back or fight for. An ideal is great, but we really need a poster girl. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're the poster girl.
I don't think so. No, I entirely agree with Richard. The Tory turnout wasn't massive. The Labour Party turnout was dramatically less, as you've seen. I think the Tories did the win by over the Labour Party conceded before the vote was even finished. They were winning by over 50%. In Hartlepool, that is. And we've seen the Tories here in County Durham have taken quite a lot of seats. Again, as you say, that isn't necessarily because of a massive Tory turnout, but it is a massive turn towards the Tories for people who'd maybe voted Lib Dem or Independent or Green or whatever, have kind of shaken all that off and gone back to the Tories for some reason. And the reason Labour Party weren't getting any members, as I've said time and again, and I'll continue to say it until we offer a real opposition, is because we do nout. We say nout. We sit in PMQs and go, well, I agree with the government and I won't oppose the government. And then when they say, should this person be sacked for doing all these horrendous things? Oh, that's not for me to say. And it's just like, it doesn't feel like we are offering anything alternative. We don't have an opposition, and so there's a lot of apathy there. And I don't want to bring it back to Jeremy Corbyn, because I don't believe it is one man who was responsible for that whole movement. It was a movement that had encouragement, enthusiasm, hope, excitement, that brought thousands of people out. That is what we need. That was someone to get behind, but it wasn't one person. It was an idea, and that idea has been ripped away from us very quickly. It was being, torn away for years. But we hung on, and now we feel like it's been replaced by something that's so starkly different, that those people who were so engaged and so enthused have kind of just gone, oh, what's the point? Because we gave blood, sweat and tears for that. We really did, and we battled for it. And that doesn't exist for us anymore. We need those ideals, those policies, that collectivism, that listening to people. What's so wrong with that? That's the party I want to be in. That's democracy in action. And we're not all going to agree all the time, but at least we could disagree in a consensus. We could disagree in a polite way. It doesn't have to be such a divide, but unfortunately we are here, and it is.
Can I just say, Paul, I see some of the talk on Twitter tonight from journalists is all about would there be a leadership challenge from the left? Maybe that's just media hype, and it's not actually true among Labour MPs. I don't know whether what you think on this, but I don't want there to be a leadership challenge now. that it's not the time. We shouldn't be going through that now as a party. I trusted that man when I voted for him. End of the day, I voted for Keir Starmer. I trusted he would bring the party together. That was the message he wanted to sell: unity, and the things he promised. We need him to deliver. Let's put this election to bed. Let's focus now on moving forward. We need that man to deliver on the things he promised. Let's get back on track.
This is the interesting thing for me, and a few of you have seen it. It's actually a public Facebook post, so a few of you will have seen this one. I put something out earlier on about what the Labour Party needs to do, and I was saying it's not really necessarily about the leader. The problem is the structures of the Labour Party now, and this goes right back down to electoralism and whether the Labour Party is a vehicle for change at all, or whether, because it seems like you can't even get past the establishment in the Labour Party to change things, never mind get into Westminster with those principles, and then you're up against barrier after barrier after barrier. But if you're going to do it, then the Labour Party needs to be something that is a grassroots organisation where you're listening to working class people, or any people, people to define as any class or whatever. You need to be in a community and you need to get a majority opinion in there. And you'll find if you go and do that, and if you speak to them sensibly, you'll find that actually most of your socialist values they will share. They want fairness, they want equality, they want good safe jobs, they want a safe community, they want the NHS to look after them. They do support your socialist values if you speak to them, but everything's so confused in the media. So, for example, I had a little conversation with someone yesterday online who was really nice and polite. It was on someone else's page where he was saying that Labour had become too left-wing. And I was like, well, I would say they're not left-wing enough. And then he was saying, well, you ignored Brexit. I was like, that's anti-democratic. That's not too left-wing. Left-wing is for the working, because he was saying that the Labour Party aren't for the working class anymore. Well, left-wing is for the working class. It has to be defined. Left-wing has to be for the working class against big business and what have you. That is the divide. Right wing is for the establishment and for big business. Left wing is for the ordinary people. And if people have got that kind of confused mentality, and it comes into a comment that hang on, someone from Liverpool, Katie McDonough said she's really surprised at the North East. Now, they don't listen to the big business Sun. They are absolutely brilliant, in solidarity to the people of Liverpool. Well done there. They don't buy the Sun or what have you. But anyway, to go back to what you were talking about there, I want to see a Labour Party that is grassroots based and respects its members. I don't want to see a leadership challenge either. I think we'll see one from the right. However, I think Keir Starmer is, I've seen it time and again as a trade union rep. He's not a leader. He's a very, very poor manager. He's a poor middle manager. He tinkers around the edges and listens to other people and is like, oh, we've got to do this, oh, we've got to do that. And he doesn't have a vision. He doesn't know what he wants, but he knows what other people around him who are advising him, right, this is what we'll do to those people. And he doesn't see it as a collaboration. A leader should be able to listen to a load of ideas and say, well, actually, listen to all what you've said. I've got some answers for you about why my vision fits in with that. And then I'll say, but actually, you've changed my mind a little bit on a couple of things. So we're going to move that. That's what a leader does. They don't micromanage. They don't go, they're going to oppose me. I'll kick him out of the party. It's crap. Whatever he's doing is crap. So I don't think the man is capable of an original thought, never mind leading a political party. So as much as I don't want to see a leadership challenge, I don't see the Labour Party being as it possibly could be. It might never be able to be there. There might be too much establishment kind of force in there that's going to resist any change whatsoever. So there might be too much of that in there. But if there is going to be something, it's definitely not going to come from him. He's an establishment man. He will keep the party exactly as it is or move it right, because he's an establishment man. That's what he is. He's got no inspiration. he's just no one knows what he even is, and he's worse than like just being a haircut, because he's doing damage. He's doing real damage. He's turning people off. Look at the lack of members. Look at members turning away in the droves and stuff. So as much as, yeah, we probably don't need to do more navel gazing within the Labour Party, we need to do something else, and he's not going to do it. He doesn't know anything else. Sorry, Laura.
That's all right. I was just going to say that I was much of the mind of Mark. I didn't vote for Keir Starmer, but once he got voted in, I was like, right, okay, we'll give him a chance, because his pledges were all really good, and he wanted to unite the party. I haven't seen him even attempt to unite the party. In fact, all I've seen him is him and David Evans is sow more division with their grotesque rules that they've brought in, with their ridiculous suspensions. They suspend people all over the place and don't even tell them why, and there always tend to be people on the left. They haven't tried to hide this very well at all. And I just want to come back to something that Vonnie said that I just think is so spot on, and I don't know how we recover from it. People keep saying we need change, but nobody's told us how. Obviously, leadership challenge is one way that people have suggested. Some people are really, really angry at Keir Starmer. I think rightly so. But Vonnie said you can't unite people who believe in and want to maintain the status quo of neoliberal capitalism and those who want socialism. I couldn't agree more. Those two are so juxtaposed to each other. You know what I'm getting at? I think I've had too many beers.
Juxtaposed.
Yeah.
You did really well there. Don't use juxtaposed. Dear me, if you want to not
after a few beers.
Yeah. Just say
I'm
something
so
else.
working class, I drink beer. But yeah, they just don't match. They don't mesh. So how have we got all these neoliberals and all of these socialists in the same party? How do we get them to unite? At the minute, I think the neoliberals are just trying to kick everybody else out. So what happens? I don't know. It's really difficult.
Yeah. What, Mark? Thoughts on that?
Well, I'm just looking at a tweet here that apparently Keir Starmer said his top priority was to stop the party squabbling amongst themselves. That's doing a very good. He's done a very good job at that. I think ultimately, as I said, I don't think we need a leadership challenge now. I want to give in my personal opinion, I want to give the man more time to change. If that change isn't possible, if he's not able to deliver a vision for where he takes the country and a vision for how he unites the party, then he needs to go. There's no other way of doing it. There's no other way of working, because we continue to go backwards. And we're fighting for the poorest in society. We're saying a liar, cheating, a fraud. Let's have it right. In Boris Johnson, he's destroying this country. He's separating and dividing this country between the haves and the have-nots, and he's getting away with it. And this is right-wing populism. This is a classic example of right-wing populism. We saw it with Trump in America in 2016, and we're seeing it with Boris Johnson now. Let's call it what it is. It's right-wing populism. Yeah,
I agree with that. It's just like, we don't need a leadership election, but we do need a leadership election, because the right are going to go for him anyway. So the left need to be prepared for that. And by that, DMA, the Labour Party, Parliamentary Labour Party, is so right wing. They are so not what their members are, and they don't have the same beliefs as their members. They are a different set of people. It was interesting seeing Phil Wilson wheeled out and stuff like that. The fella who kicked down a sign that had said "hope" 3 times and screamed at like some women during a meeting about violence and aggression towards women. Like they have no, that perfectly sums them up. They have no self-awareness. Tim has just said Durham County Council election results. It's quite funny as well, because he said a very rough and ready. He said analysis, but it's like, our filters have taken out the word anal there. So they're working well. That's quite nice. Analysis of the TCC election results. A handful of seats to be declared, but most are done. Big loss of seats for Labour, but they remain the largest party by some way. More than double any other party, but well down. Lib Dems have increased the seats by about 25%. Tories have increased theirs by 50%. A lot of gains in the northwest and the west of the county. In Peterlee, the North East Party dominated, picking up 4 seats, just one more than last time out, but don't have seats elsewhere. Derwentide Independents lost a couple of seats. Seam Community Party, despite fielding a large number of candidates, didn't pick up any. Seam did well. Solidarity Seam, we love you. The Spennymoor Independents, and also well done Rochelle, because we love you as well. And Rochelle from Socialist Think Tank won her seat, and you know that's the kind of person we need to be in there making change. The same community party, yeah. The Spennymoor Independents people before politics failed to win any seats this time around. The Greens got 1 seat. The Independents not aligned to any parties increased, approaching 50%. In rough summary, it's a hung council by some way. Who will align with whom and over what? I guess we'll be doing that on Tuesday. And in really sad news, obviously, like some of you who follow Socialist Think Tank, on a Tuesday, Political Unmuted, John Clare didn't get his seat, which is the... You know, if you value hard work, then it doesn't matter what political party you stand for. You don't vote against the person who's the only person working in a ward to do something. Like Paul Howell's been in there. It was a 425... when we did the subject access request, he's like doing 425 things in it, like, and Paul Howell had done 2 and Scott Durham had done none. You know, this guy's a hard-working guy. That's just a disgrace, and that's one of the weird things about politics, that, you know, you can be good at what you do and it doesn't matter. So
just say, Paul, on that, it would be wrong of me not to recognise some of the Labour councillors that got elected today in Hartlepool for the Labour Party CLP. Really, really hard workers, really, really solid people, good people, and they should be recognised for that. So I just want to recognise them.
Good, really good. So let's hope things change. In Hartlepool, actually, we should have learned some lessons from Hartlepool, because the people who were causing the problem and losing the respect of local people in the Labour Party switched and said they were Socialist Labour, and then went in a coalition with the Tories in Hartlepool. Right. And not very many people know that story, but they said they were the Socialist Labour Party, like of Arthur Scargill. And then
they caused a lot of our problems in our Labour Party here, and they were chucked out thanks to the people who are in there now. But you know, there's still work to do in repairing the damage that they did, and luckily a lot of them people are no longer in the council, so you'll be pleased to know that. And we have got a lot of new people being elected today as Labour councillors, and I look forward to see the work they do in the council, moving us forward beyond this terrible result.
Final comments from people. Northern Independence Party, 250 votes, yeah, in Hartlepool. Is that right?
I think that's about right, yeah. Yep.
So I think maybe, is there a lesson to be learned there? You know, like there was a lot of Twitter hype, a lot of media hype, and, you know, I have nothing against the people who saw no future in the Labour Party. Many of them were suspended as well, and back to Keir Starmer. That's the first. If he wants to start to make change, that's the only thing that would get me back on, like, you know, on a side where I don't want to see the back of him. Unsuspend those members, give Jeremy Corbyn the whip back, stop being so divisive. That would be something. And those people who were kicked out of the party and whatever, they needed something to cling to. But it hasn't worked out electorally, has it? Like, you know, 250 votes is very poor.
Yeah, and Thelma Walker, I think you talked about Thelma Walker there, who was an excellent MP for Labour. Why she stood as the Northern Independence Party, I think the party's a bit of a joke, to be honest with you. I agree with some of the things it says, but really we don't want to be standing, especially Thelma. I'm a bit disappointed in Thelma Walker standing against the Labour Party there. You know, I mean, I voted Labour, obviously, but I didn't campaign for the candidate, not because I didn't think he was a good person, doctor, but because I didn't have a choice in picking him. But yeah, we don't want to be standing against Labour and taking votes away from Labour where we expect Labour to win. But on that, Paul, right? There's a lot of people, and this is really sad, really, to think this. And I think it's been said earlier on in the program. There's a lot of people I don't believe know how Parliament works. When you're an opposition MP, you've got only a vote and a voice in Parliament. You don't have control. You're not in government. You're not making decisions that affect people's lives. So we voted for change. The whole Tory mantra in this campaign was vote for change. What, to vote for the Tory party that we've had the last 11 years? That needs to be understood. I don't think it has been understood.
Yeah, that's fair. Laura, any points on this? I know we've seen Carl's, I think maybe thinks we're being a bit unfair on the Northern Independence Party. 3 months as a party, they haven't had a big opportunity to prove themselves. But it's very interesting as well that Sam Lee, who was the only real credible local candidate, did get about 7% of the vote, I think, which, given no party affiliation, I think that's something that we need to learn as well. People want to see a local person in there, so there'll be party loyalties, and but there'll also be town loyalties.
9.7%.
9.7. That's pretty good for an independent in an election that was that high profile in a safe Labour seat. So should parties be learning lessons from this and putting in good local candidates that are well known in their areas, that are decided by local members? Or is that because they seem to have found no difference between someone who was, I found out he was a doctor because he always had a stethoscope on in all these pictures. I didn't know until that point, but that didn't seem to matter to people, that he was a doctor. And it didn't seem to matter that the Tory candidate lived in a tax haven for however many years. If you're parachuting in a candidate, you're parachuting in a candidate. So, all right.
Yeah, I think it really should be a given that somebody, at least in a neighbouring constituency, someone local who knows the area, goes for that seat. I don't think it serves anybody any purpose to bring somebody up from London to run in Hartlepool or Sedgefield or Easington, these places that have really rich working class histories, to come and tell us how things should be done. That's not going to fly here. We're clever people, and that gets really underestimated because of our working class titles, because we live near pit villages, things like that. And because of, as we said at the beginning of the show, historically, that southern discomfort, we don't need to worry about the northerners because they'll just vote for us. Well, those days are over. We need, and I think we all agree on this panel, we may disagree on how to do it, but we agree that we need to be a grassroots up organisation in the Labour Party. And that means getting out around your local area, speaking to people, listening to what they want, what their fears and dreams are, so that you can pull that all together and formulate some sort of goals, some ideals, some way to resonate with those people. Because essentially you're their voice. Like Mark said, you only get a vote and a voice. That's it. That's all you can offer. That voice needs to be backed up by your constituents who you've spoken to. It doesn't need to be, hey, everyone, don't worry, I'm here. I'm going to save the day. I know what's best for you. Fabianism is not the way to go. Let's do proper socialism when we actually talk to people. So yeah, but I feel like that should just be a given. I'm surprised that parachuting happens at all. You're just going to piss people off. So yeah, that's my last little note.
with Fabian, Hartlepool's pretty Fabian, isn't it, Mark? The Fabian
It's certainly got an
society's quite
element.
strong there.
It's certainly got an element to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the chair of the Fabians from Sedgefield, who's the person I referred to earlier on, who hasn't been to any of our executive meetings. So it's like I'll not listen to anyone. I'll just rock up at a Fabian meeting and tell everyone else how it goes. But on that note, I think we'll probably wrap it up. Do we think? Yeah, we've gone on way longer than I thought we would. We did have a little break in the middle. Thank you so much. The quality of the comments has been absolutely outstanding. I think for Carl's benefit, I don't think Mark was trying to explain to you how parliamentary politics works. I think he was saying that other people, like say, like for example, there've been some really silly comments this week from people saying they voted for the Tories because they brought in all the food banks.
Yes.
You know, and that way people are getting fed. And you know, and I think one of the things that as socialists we need to do is be like, either be really grim around food banks. Like if you're going to go to a food bank and have your photo taken, be grim as hell. Put the volunteers forward and be like, these are the brilliant volunteers. This horrible thing should not be happening. You know, because there's far too many people smiling at food banks. Everyone's like, yeah, food banks are cool. You know, let's have a cool food bank in our town. Why don't we have a food bank here? Well, you know, you don't want a food bank. You don't need it.
And there's far too many people, Paul, in this election saying they voted for change. But the voted for change, tell me how that delivers change. Tell me how a Tory MP in this town delivers change when you've had a Tory government for the last 11 years. That tells me, and I don't want to be horrible about it, but that tells me that some people don't know how parliamentary democracy works and how a parliamentary system works.
Yeah.
That's all I was saying.
Yeah, I get that. It wasn't aimed at the viewers.
No.
The very wise viewers of this show. So thank you so much everyone for listening. Thank you so much to Mark for being and Kath earlier on.
Pleasure to come on, by the way, Paul. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, always a pleasure to see you and chat to you, Mark. It's always a good thing to have you here and giving us the insight from Hartlepool as well, because a lot of people have been talking about it, but I've not really heard very many Hartlepool voices in any sort of media whatsoever. So really,
no, the media do turn up and then leave, you know, and they don't speak to a lot of people in the town.
Yeah, or if they do, it'll be some sort of caricature of someone like hanging a monkey or something like that. So. Yeah, always good. Okay, so thank you again, everyone. Say goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Right. Oh, and don't forget, you can be a member of Socialist Think Tank. You can join us. You can pay for that if you like, to help us to reach a wider audience and do the things that we do. But there is no hierarchy of membership in Socialist Think Tank. You will get exactly the same if you simply join up for free. And please do. Either of those options are absolutely brilliant. You can come in, you can join our WhatsApp group, you can join our forums and bring things up there. You can suggest future guests and just be involved. We love the people who are our members of Socialist Think Tank. We generally tend to love a lot of people being socialist. That's one of the prerequisites. But especially our members. Solidarity to everyone. Solidarity to everyone who's won all the socialists, who've won elections today. Hopefully they'll be able to make positive change. And, you know, to anyone who wants to absolutely destroy the chances of the working class, shame on you. And night Keir Starmer, and stop cutting our internet off. I'm sick of it. See you later.